Hello, everyone. Welcome back to E20 Zone TV, and this is the West Ham review for 2021. And I am joined by Charlie Walsh. You know who he is. You know where he's at. Hammers Chat. Talk to me, Charlie. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. It looked like it was going to end badly for a while, and then we snuck in a sneaky final win at the end, just to cap off what was being quite a solid year for West Ham. So I'm all right. I'm not bad. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yeah, I agree. I didn't see that one coming yesterday, I must admit. But it was a great win in the end. We make it hard work for ourselves, though, but I think that's just the West Ham way, isn't it? You know what I mean? We always like to go with goal behind before we start turning up.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it, Charlie. Year 2021 for West Ham. I'm going to start off with this: the Lingard impact back in January when we signed him. Give me your thoughts, Charlie, on the signing of him, and then the impact that he actually did make.
So I liked the idea of bringing Jesse Lingard to West Ham. I think I always had like a little bit more faith in him than I should. I think he got judged by a very high standard. I remember we did a video on Hammers Chat where we had a bunch of people talking, just giving like their sort of 2 to 3 minute thoughts on Jesse Lingard signing, and I remember saying something along the lines of, I think people judged him too harshly because he was at such a big club, and people were like, you're not living up to those expectations. And he had that one season where he just exploded form-wise and was just getting goals and assists it was just like bam, 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 bam. And people sort of looked at it and gone, well, where's that? Where's that gone then? You're not good. Where's that gone? Whereas I felt like actually he was still doing okay. It's just sometimes when you have a season like that, you can't live up to it again and people judge you harshly on it. The one problem I had with it was we were signing him on loan without a view to buy, without an option to buy. And I was like, this can only serve to screw us over. Like, if he does well enough and we're going to want to sign him, then we won't be able to. They'll be in complete control of how much money they want to charge for him. And if he doesn't do well, then it's been a waste of money regardless. I felt like it was the only people who could benefit from that situation were Manchester United. And I think that sort of semi came to pass. He had an unreal time of us. And then he went back and we couldn't sign him again. We just didn't have it in us, and it's frustrating to see because I think the actual on pitch impact he had was. I mean, it was the thing. We have players who can do what he does, and we had players who could do what he does, but no one could do it instantaneously, perfectly in the system at that exact moment. And I think without him, we probably wouldn't have got European football. I think we still would have finished very well. We have a very good squad right now, but I don't think we would have done what we managed to do in the end.
Would you say though, Charlie, that that's the best loan signing the Premier League in the Premier League era? Like for someone to come into a club, literally transform the club, and then not actually get signed.
I'm trying to have a little think. Maybe for some this is why Charlie Walsh is broken and you should never listen to Charlie Walsh. You were like, is it the best loan signing in the Premier League era? And my brain went, yeah, but do you remember when Henrik Larsson turned up at Man United for a bit and you just got to see Henrik Larsson more? I was like, yeah, that's not good. He was all right, to be fair, but stop, Jay, you're right. Yeah, probably. I mean, he's up there. Let's be real. I don't know, because I feel like there's definitely going to be someone I'm forgetting, but it's undoubtedly up there. And I think a lot of people were having that conversation at the time, especially towards the end when he left. A lot of people were having that conversation despite that sort of dodgy final month or whatever he had.
I don't know. I just feel that he was one of the best signings I think West Ham's made, loan signing. And we don't do well at loan signings, as you know. We've signed some crap over the years. But quickly before we move on, Charlie, give me the one game that you could say you was like, wow, like with Jesse Lingard, the impact that he made last season.
Was it? I feel like it was Villa away. We've had this conversation on shows before. You have the memory that I don't have, so I'll have to defer to you. But I want to say it was Villa away. That was his debut,
yeah.
Right?
So,
yeah, and I remember, I don't know if it was a goal or whether it was just a specific turn of play, but we were defending really deeply. And we were defending all right. We were defending well, and they were sort of on top of us. And I just remember him controlling the ball, nutmegging one of their players, and then just outside, just got round their press by himself via a nutmeg, and then just went all the way up the other end of the pitch. And I don't remember whether it ended up in a goal or not, but I remember watching it and going, there's very few players who are capable of doing that, because he has that sort of natural flair that only a few players have. You know, you're looking at like Ben Rama probably has it, Ravel Morrison had it, that sort of ability where they have the ball and they can just get past you without you even knowing they're past you. That sort of thing that we don't see too often at West Ham. We've seen players who are good at dribbling, but very few who can just ghost past you. And I remember watching him do that and being like, my God, that was a banger. That was a banger. But yeah, that's the game that sticks out in my mind instantaneously.
I think the Wolves game for me, the one when he run through and he just like went for everyone. And the Villa game was a good one. I think the Arsenal game was the best half that West Ham's played for a long time in the 3-3 draw. I've got to admit, it was just unreal.
The psychological damage the second half did, maybe not so much, but the first half, I remember what you mean.
The first half was absolutely outrageous from us, really unreal. I've got to admit, there's some games, even the Tottenham game, when we played Tottenham, we won 2-1. He scored, and that was a great finish. Are you surprised, though, Charlie, before I move on to my next sort of banner, are you surprised that we haven't signed this man? Really?
No. I mean, to an extent, I'm surprised we haven't tried harder. I'll say that. I think it was always difficult because, and this is what I meant, I felt like we should have had this sort of thing pre-agreed, because his stock was really low before he came to us, like really low. And then he left, and then all of a sudden his stock had skyrocketed. And with someone who has a lot of here's a high wage, it's difficult to go, okay, we're going to commit and put all as much money as we can into this guy, because he's obviously at the age where this is going to be his last big transfer. He obviously deserves high wages because of how good he is, and the age is the right thing or whatever. But then if his transfer fee is also super high, and we're a very poor club, it feels like at times, I'm not too shocked. I'm surprised we didn't try to make it. I'm surprised we didn't try harder. I'm surprised before he went back that we weren't like trying to sort that deal from there. And we probably were, but it didn't come out in a way where it was like West Ham are really, really serious about keeping Jesse Lingard. It never really felt like that. It never quite happened. So, and now I don't think it will happen at all. I'm at a stage now where I don't think it will happen at all, because his stock is high and he's going to have lots of options, and there's going to be people out there who have more money than us and bigger clubs who are in Champions League who probably would like him and stuff like that. So I don't know if it will happen now, but we'll see. What about you? You shocked?
A little bit. How a player can make such an impact, how fast he can make an impact. And West Ham just didn't go in there and go, let's get this man out. Like, let's get him out of Manchester United. I think it's a bit of both. I think it's West Ham not really showing the desire. And I think where Jesse Lingard, I've had this discussion on different channels, where Jesse Lingard's a Man United fan, I think he's attached to the club. He's grown up there. He's a fan. He's been through the academy. He's been through the first team. He's done it all, hasn't he? And I think deep down he can't let go that he's not that player no more. I don't want to be rude, but they don't want him no more. Like, they want better than him.
Yeah.
So I feel
it reminds me of Jenkinson. Yeah. After Jenkinson that first year, and it was like, we need to go and snap this guy up. Exact same situation. We had him on loan. We didn't have any sort of deal to sign him. He was absolutely brilliant that first season. And they were like, Arsenal turned around and went, yeah, okay, 10 million. And we went, whoa, we can't be spending 10 million on Carl Jenkinson. And then we ended up getting him on loan again. He gets injured. He signed that new deal, didn't he? Jesse Lingard hasn't done that, but Jenkinson instantly signed that new deal and ended up working out from how he did. But it's the exact same situation where it's a childhood fan, and it just... And I don't blame him for that. I 100% don't blame him for that. I 100% understand why he would make that decision. It's disappointing, but I understand it. But from a club perspective, I'm a bit, like you say, shocked a little bit.
Moving on, mate, to this. The 6th place finish that we finished last season, Charlie. Be honest, at the start of January last year, could you see us finishing 6th or higher? Really?
No, not top 6. Not top 6.
Where was you looking at last season? Top 10?
At the beginning of the season,
Mm.
I just wanted us to survive. Because I didn't like David Moyes. Still not his biggest fan, if I'm being honest, but I didn't like David Moyes at the time. And then about halfway through, it looked like we were doing well. We'd had some periods where we were really doing like blisteringly well, and I felt like we could have got a top. Let's see that position, best of the rest kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because obviously there were the big clubs. There was a couple of them struggling or whatever. So best of the rest, but I would never have said a European finish. That I didn't think, as well as we were doing, that didn't feel achievable for us.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I really do. I think the sixth place finish, I think we should have finished fourth, if I'm honest. I think we had the chances, which I'll get onto the next banners in a minute. But there were so many games last year where we just let it go, let it slip by. Like Brighton away, when we drew 1-0 against, let's be honest, an injury hit Brighton. Newcastle away when we lost 3-2 and Dawson gets sent off. And just certain games last year where we just sort of just let the game go away, sort of thing, rather than take the initiative and try and own it, so to speak. But when we did finish sixth, I thought it was a great achievement considering where we was a year ago, like previous. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're in a pandemic. We need Yarmolenko to score a goal against Chelsea to keep us in the league near enough, and he does. And we managed to win the next couple of games and see it out. But yeah, it was a good end of the season. But I think we could have finished a little bit higher. I don't know why. What do you think? Do you think that, or do you think am I being a bit harsh there?
Maybe a bit harsh, but I don't think you can disagree with the fact that the opportunity was there. I think if you're looking at where we were the season before and the building period, I have no qualms. I was like flipping out. I'm happy. So I remember you might have even been on it. We were doing some shows on American Hammers. We were doing Lee's show quite a lot at that time, me and you together. And you might have been on it when we had conversations about this. And I was like, do you know what? Obviously, fourth is the dream, but realistically, if we get top six and we drop out at the end, I'm not going to be disappointed because that's still insanely high, especially for where we were the season before. I'd be more than happy with that. But there was a palpable sense, I think, among the fan base at least, that we could have got that. I'm not saddened by the fact we didn't, but I'm like, there was a missed opportunity there. But I don't let it dwell on me too much because I'm like, flipping hell, we still finished sixth and got into the Europa League, which is an insane achievement considering, like I said, I thought we would have been one of the favourites to go down at the beginning of the season.
Moving on to this, which is signings in the summer window. First question, Charlie.
Yes.
Did we do enough with the 4 signings that we got?
No, probably not. I'm happy. I'm very happy with the individuals we brought in. This isn't to diss any of the individuals involved. I'm very happy with them each individually. As a player coming to the club, I'm happy. Some of the deals I might have issues with here, there, and whatever, but the actual individuals we signed, I was very happy with, and I'm very happy with. Do I think we could have or should have done more? Yes, probably should have. And it's kind of why whenever me and you or whatever other show I've been on at the time, whenever we've spoken about the budget in January and the budget next season, all that sort of stuff, I just don't think we have money. I just don't. Because I think if we had money, that was the time to go out there and do it, you know? And I think part of that is obviously we don't have the network, at least at the time. We're starting to build that now, and the new investor with links to Prague, and that's going to help us even more network wise, just knowing who's out there and available, which we just didn't have before. But that's not to say there aren't players who we could have got. Like left back, we all agree is an issue, right? Left back is something I think every West Ham fan would say we need to be looking at. And as much as we might not be able to go, okay, who's the best left back in the Belgian league or whatever, who's this, who's that, as much as we not be able to go that, we can still turn around and go, well, like obviously Rico Henry came up to the Premier League, but Anthony Robinson was getting relegated. There was this player, there was that player, there was that player. There's all of these players around that we would have known, and we didn't make happen. Did we do enough? No, but the individuals, at least, I'm happy with each of the individuals we brought in, and some of them I'm ecstatic with.
Well, out of the individuals,
yes,
obviously we've signed 2 permanent players in Vlasic and Zuma, so they're going to be here for a long time. Can you see Areola and Crowell being here next season?
I see Crowell being here because I think the money is achievable. The Areola one, the only thing that concerns me about it is his wages.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. I know.
He's on incredibly high wages at PSG. And that's because he is at PSG. And that's not the first big club he's played for either. You're looking at a guy who's also played for Real Madrid, obviously only on loan, but he's been around the block. I think Crowell will stay mainly because I think the money's there and it feels me. It makes sense to me. How do I word this? It makes sense to me that David Moyes is treating him similarly to how he's treated Ben Rama or Bowen in the past when he's brought these players in and it's taken them time to adapt and time to put in. And the problem is with Crowell is that we have two unbelievably good DMs ahead of him for the first time in I can't even remember since maybe we had since we went down to the championship and like Rice and Souček's the championship equivalent of having like Nolan and Noble and Parker when Parker was there very briefly at the beginning of the championship and stuff like that. Like we just have this insane talent there. One in Declan Rice who is he's transcendent, and Thomas Souček who is incredibly good and could go on to play in the Champions League quite easily and hopefully will with us, right? It makes it even more difficult for him to get in. But wage-wise and cost-wise, I think Crowell is achievable. And I think it would be a smart signing to make. Even though he hasn't shown it at West Ham, he hasn't really had that opportunity yet. I don't discount that just because of the way Moyes works.
I must admit, I've got to agree that we still needed another one or two signings for me. We're massively lacking, especially the left back situation. We've all known Arthur Mazuaku can't defend for years. He's still here. He's still in the left back position. Yeah. But we need a backup striker and all. Out of all the signings, Charlie, who is your favourite one? I'll probably guess who it is, but who is your favourite?
His middle name's Happy, bro. Like, how can you not pick him? He's so beautiful. Oh, he's just a wonderful man. He's just a wonderful guy. Like, I'd always liked Kurt Zouma. I always thought Kurt Zouma had what it took to be a top-level centre-back. When you see him, and I saw him at Chelsea, and I'm like, this kid's just so good. How is he going? Like, I know before he went out on loan to Stoke, he had that horrendous injury. And so there's probably a sense of like Chelsea being a bit pragmatic and sensible about it and going, okay, you go to Stoke, we see how your injury plays out. We can do whatever. But that guy is so good. He's got James. He's wonderful. He's one of the only times where we don't tend to spend big in defense at all, let alone at centre-back. But we don't tend to spend big in defence, right? Like, there's a couple of times we've done it. Issa Diop is an obvious person. But there's very few times where we've spent that amount of money and I've just gone, not only just me, every single West Ham fan has gone, yeah, no, he was worth it. How many times do we have conversations about Ben Rama, Haller, Anderson, all of these players, Carroll, like to us who are major, big, like Carroll in the grand scheme of things now is small signing, but back then was gigantic. And we always go, oh, he's rubbish. He can't do this. He can't do that. Bro, how many times does every single West Ham fan go, no, actually, this guy was 100% worth the money. Look at him. He's just, it's so evident. He's incredible.
Who would you like, before we move on to my next category, who would you like to partner Zouma in the future? If you could sign someone, obviously realistic signing, who would you like to see go with him? Because Abonna's getting on now. Diop, I've tried backing him up, but he's losing faith with me. And Craig Dawson shouldn't be a first choice at West Ham, or in the Premier League at least.
I agree with everything you said. Like, idealistically, I would want it to be Diop. Like, if he lived up to the potential he had, imagine that as a centre back pairing. Jesus Christ! But like you, I'm at the stage where I'm like, is it going to happen? As much as like you say, as much as I like Dawson, he shouldn't be starting in the Premier League for West Ham if we are to fulfil the ambitions we want. And Ogbonna is just old. I think he's brilliant, but and we don't know how he'll come back from injury, to be fair. But
I don't know, mate.
When you say realistic, it's really difficult.
Well, let me give you some names. Would you have Tarkowski in there, Aki in there? collect a car in there.
I mean, Ake's the first choice. Obviously, Ake's the first choice.
Yeah.
I think including that, he's left-sided, he's left-footed. He gives us an ability to play out from the back that would help as well. Because as much as Ogbona's okay at passing, Diop cannot pass, and Dawson only knows boot it long, and I'm fine with that, and I love him for it. But he does only know boot it long.
Yeah.
So Ake is obviously the dream one out of that. I like Kletekara, what I've seen of him. I think he's a good centre back. I think he's got a lot of the traits I would enjoy to see, and I'd like that. The partnership seems like it would work in my head, but Ake is like the one where I'm like, oh, that takes us to a different level, because Ake is more than good enough to start. Ake is good enough to start for a Champions League team, let alone a Europa League team. So obviously Ake. But when you say realistic, I said this on the show last night, and I know you don't like it, but I do really genuinely think that Tarkowski's the only realistic option we have right now. Like, just numbers wise, it just makes sense for us. And I don't. Is he good enough to replace Ogbonna? Not the Ogbonna who went away pre-injury. He's not.
Is he an upgrade though on Craig Dawson though? He's an upgrade on Craig Dawson, or would you compare them both as the same really?
No, I think he's. I would call him an upgrade on Craig Dawson. I would call him an upgrade on Craig Dawson. I'd say he's an upgrade on Diop, not the dream of Diop, but what Diop has been since his first season. Obviously, his first season, different story, but since his first season, he's an upgrade on both of those. And like I say, money wise, it's the only one that makes sense for me. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get a loan centre back, and I wouldn't be against that. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way we went, as opposed to a full on signing. Not until the summer window, when we can think about it a bit more.
Yeah, I agree. Quickly, Charlie, how many signings do we sign in January for you?
2.
And who are they? In what positions?
We'll sign a centre back on loan, and we'll probably get an attacking midfielder / winger.
Do you reckon anyone will go?
No. Well, maybe Masuaku. I have this image in my head of Masuaku leaving, and I think out of all the people we have, he's one of the people who's achievable to sign for other players. Like, the thing is, because Yarmolenko's wages are so high, so unless we cancel his contract, we agree a termination, that's not happening. He's not leaving until the end of his contract. Fredericks, I think, is just too injury prone for people to pay for. I think Fredericks could do a job. and I think Masuaku could do a job in certain positions, not left back and a back four. But I think Masuaku's the only one who Masuaku's the only one where you could see a buying club go, okay, we can invest the amount of money it would take to get out of West Ham, because I don't think it would be that high, but the others are just mad. Unless we sold a big name. And I don't see that happening, but unless we sold a big name, unless we sold a Rice, a Souček, whoever else, Bowen, whatever, I don't think any of those, I don't think we'll see anyone like that leave, though, not till summer.
Yeah. Moving on. Worst moment of 2021 as a West Ham fan, Charlie. Now, we've had some bad luck, I'll call it. Obviously, last year we lost Declan Rice at a key time just after England. We played Arsenal in a 3-3 draw. He went away for England. He come back. He's injured, and it really ruined us last year. Obviously, this season we've lost Kirk Zuma, we've lost Bonner, we've lost Cresswell. But what's your sort of moment where you've gone, oh no, this is lots of luck and all bad, so to speak?
Yeah, it probably was the second of those 3 injuries, because all of a sudden it was very real. Like, I think because we had conversations, I remember you being on West Ham Random at the time, and everyone was sort of having conversations about whether or not we could cope without one of them. I remember Peach specifically coming in very hot on the idea that we were able to cope without one of them, and you being like, well, I think we can, but like, I think it's once the second went down, and we just went, because all of a sudden not having one of them, because again, Dawson and Diop, having one of them isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world.
As soon as Zuma went down,
it was a case of like, outside of that, I mean, like, I think this is kind of petty to an extent, but like the Noble miss of the penalty was heartbreaking, like against Man United. Like, I've never, like, I don't get, when I do the watch alongs on Hammers Chat, people all the time, they'll go to me, Charlie, you're so calm. you're always so calm. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really get animated. It's just not me. It's just
Yeah.
not me as a person. Maybe if I'm watching wrestling, probably, but when I'm watching whatever else, I don't really tend to get too OTT about whatever. And like, I just remember him coming on and talking it through. And as I spoke more and more about it, I was like, Mark Noble stepping up against Manchester United in the final minute in his last. As I carried on talking, the pressure was getting to me, let alone Noble. And then, like, the commentators in my ears, because I'm listening to the game as well at the same time as talking. And so I'm hearing the commentators being like, De Gea hasn't saved a penalty in this many, and Noble hasn't missed one in this many. And then he just missed. And there was like a moment where I was just like, excuse me? How did that happen? How has that possibly happened? The one thing. And in Mark Noble in his last year, it was just, that was the most heartbreaking moment. I don't know if it's worst, but on a personal level, I don't know if I'm ever going to fully recover from that.
That was hard, mate. I must admit, that was a moment where I wouldn't say that was one of the worst. I would say the worst moment for me was Newcastle away last year. That was the game where I knew that West Ham might not get Champions League. We had just played Leicester and Wolves, I think it was, and we won 3-2 in both games. 3-2 at home against Leicester, 3-2 away at Wolves, and we go to Newcastle, and I fancy us to go up there and do something up there, and then Craig Dawson gets sent off, and Moyes completely got the team wrong, played three solid centre-halves at the back, and three at the back, and that was all over the place. And I'll never forget, I was out on that day, and I watched the game on my phone, and I was at some farm or zoo place with my partner, and I was going mad, and I had to go and sit in the car for about an hour. I just couldn't handle it. Like, I was like, what is going on? He gets sent off. We lose the game 3-2 in the 90th minute to Welbeck, Zedda, and the rest is history.
Danny Welbeck, Jesus Christ.
No, Welbeck. It was Willock. Joe Willock, sorry.
Joe Willock, that was it. It was the Willock header, because that was in his purple patch where he just went in mad form all of a sudden.
Yeah, and he hasn't done it since, which makes it even worse. But there was just some crazy moments last year. I think a few worse moments for me was the Man United away game. When we go to Man United, we set up so negative against the team who was poor at the time. There was a few games last year where we sort of set up scared to go for it. Even Liverpool at home in the beginning part of January, I believe. That was another one where we just got rinsed. But yeah, also Paul just put saying in there, Paul just said worst moments in Halle ripping it up in the Champions League.
I think you could make an argument for selling him and not buying a replacement. I think you could make an argument for that. I have nothing but love for that man. Go do your thing, succeed. I'm happy for you. But maybe not replacing him was a bit. Do you remember when we sold him, right? And then it got to the end of the window, and the noise coming out of the club, as it were lots of people going, yeah, well, we're going to save the money so he can definitely get the person he wants in the summer. Bro, it's almost January again. When is he turning up? At some point, that would be useful.
Yeah, I mean, I know. I'm still waiting, mate. I'm going to grow this beard until we get a striker at the club. But it's just starting off.
You're going to look like me about a month ago. If you know.
100%, mate. 100%. Moving on, though, to the best moment of 2021 for you, Charlie. What was the best moment for your West Ham year review? What do you look back on and go, you know what? Wow, we've done pretty decent there.
That's a great question. I mean, beating City on pens was pretty great. Beating City on pens was kind of insane. And this is okay. So I'll say this, right? This is a personal one as well, right? The City one's kind of personal because again, I do the watch-alongs, and I just remember. So I have two screens, and I have everything, the technical side on one, and I had the match on the other. And I remember watching the match, and as the pens were happening, and as extra time was going on, I just remember the views going up and up and up, just getting bigger and bigger. And I remember looking at the penalty. I think we took the first penalty, and we were on like 900 viewers live, which for me is unheard of. For live watch-alongs, it's unheard of. Then we took penalty. I looked back, and it was at like, and I remember saying out loud something like, "Oh my god, we might get 1,000 here." And then I looked back, and it was at like 1.3k watching live, and I was just like, this is mad. And then I was watching West Ham beat Manchester City in the cup, and then when we won, it was the first time I've seen like opposition fans, everyone in the chat just going completely insane. Like everybody, not just West Ham fans going, "Oh my god, we've beaten Norwich 8-0 or whatever it was that day." We're talking like Man United, everyone, Arsenal fans, Chelsea fans, everyone was in the chat just going absolutely ballistic, and like it was going so fast, I just could not keep up with it in any way, shape, or form. I just couldn't keep up with it. And then later on that day, I got a message from my mum, who she'll message me after whenever West Ham wins. My mum doesn't like football, right? She supports West Ham because I support West Ham, but she doesn't care or anything. She keeps an eye on the results, and whenever we get a win, I'll get a like, yeah, we won kind of thing text, but nothing serious. And she was like, I saw your video. Everyone was going crazy. And I spoke to her about it, and she said she was in the live chat and all this other nonsense. And it was just the one moment where, like, you know what it's like. West Ham, being a West Ham fan can be hard at times. And being West Ham fans, we all know we can just go at each other for no reason sometimes. Do you know what I mean? I like Sebastian Haller, someone else doesn't. You like Ben Rama, someone else doesn't. And even during the good times when West Ham are almost getting Champions League, we can all attack each other over the most minute of things. That was the one time I saw everyone collectively, West Ham fans, opposition fans. There was even some Man City fans in the chat going, do you know what? Fair play, you deserved it. Just everyone went mad. And it was like, for West Ham, as we have been over the last 12 months, if not a little bit longer, if you include last season, it was just emblematic of just this sort of like beautiful, lovely feeling of, oh my God, we're actually good for once.
Yeah. For me, I got quite a few. The Aston Villa away game, Jesse Lingard's debut. That was one of the best away performances I've seen, like, from West Ham. The home game against Arsenal, for moments, I would say that first half was the best I've ever seen West Ham play. In that first half, I thought we was frighteningly good in that first half. Obviously, looking back to last season, coming into this season, obviously Wolves away and Lingard teared it up. And last season as a whole was a great moment, so to speak, as the season was coming to an end. Obviously, Declan getting injured didn't help the situation, but we done well to sort of get the sixth place finish this season. The Liverpool game for me stands out massively. I thought we was absolutely phenomenal against Liverpool. I thought that was a game where we played excellent. Leicester at home, I thought we was excellent. Who else we played? Tottenham wasn't vintage, but we got the job done against them. It's always nice to beat them. But yeah, like I say, there's a few games there where I look at them and think, wow, I can see the new West Ham, but the old West Ham rears his ugly head from time to time. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, that is probably my best moments. Moving on to this, Charlie. The hardest defeat of 2021.
Recency bias is telling me Southampton, but I know that's not true. I know that's not true. I know there's one last season that's pissing me. What one was it? I'm looking at the results now to try and figure out which one it was. Because I know there was one last season which just got me so angry. I'm trying to remember what it is. I remember the
Liverpool
moment
at home, was it?
annoyed. I mean, maybe.
Was it Liverpool at home where we set up so negative and against them? Or who else?
That was bad. No, that was that was the one Salah just was like, I see your deep defense and I walk past it. Yeah, no, that was pretty. That was pretty rough. That one was pretty rough. Yeah, go on. Let's go with that one because that was pretty bad. I think didn't we? Correct me if I'm wrong. You'll remember better than I will. Didn't Newcastle do the double over us last season?
Yeah, they beat us 2-0 at home, first game of the season, in one of the worst games I've seen West Ham play. That was when all that was going on with Diangana. All that.
Oh,
Diangana.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Wasn't it?
Yeah, Diangana got sold, didn't he? And Noble come out on Twitter and do you know what I mean? Yes, epic hash time. I know the spelling's wrong. Do you know what I mean? You ain't got to correct me, but
I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice.
Do you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? We all can't get it all right all the time. So yeah. But for me,
take it from someone who studied English literature and English language and didn't even notice that the fact it said defect instead of defeat. I won't worry too much about it. I'll say Liverpool because that was just like infuriating.
I'll take that off now. Nice one, epic. But for me, I think the Newcastle game last year was hard. It was a hard defeat to take for me. considering we was in such good form, and we just go up there. And I'll never forget, I done a preview of a Newcastle fan channel, and I said he thought we was just going to go up there and roll them with Jesse Lingard. And I said, I don't know, mate. I said, we just don't win at Newcastle. And we got absolutely slapped, really. There was a couple of games last year where we just didn't turn up. Chelsea at home, and we lost 1-0.
Yeah.
And the game just passed us by. Everton, same thing, 1-0, passed us by. The Manchester United away game last year, I think it was back in February time, I think, or March or something. It was just horrendous. They had just played AC Milan, I think it was. And we had them on the Sunday, and where the games were being sort of not played because of COVID, like the games were all spaced out, Charlie, weren't they? Sort of 7 o'clock in the evening and all that. And we go up there and we set up with like 9 defensive-minded players with only 2 attackers against United, and we just let that one go. The FA Cup game is another killer up there. When he brought on Mipo Odebekio. And he subbed him.
That's the other one I was thinking of. I was scrolling down and bringing him on and then bringing him back off again. And I remember I was doing a watch along. Gio came on for extra time. And when he got subbed off, I remember saying to Gio, I hope you enjoyed seeing Odebekio because you're never going to see him again. And
and me and Gio was going at it on Jake's channel saying about him. And I said, he just wasn't there. Do you know what I mean? But that's to name a few. But this season, I would say the Brentford game at home was poor. That was hard to take, considering we was in good form and we just turned out and didn't perform. And I've got to say it, and Paul's probably in the chat, he's an Arsenal fan, but the Arsenal away game I thought was absolutely horrendous from us this season, this year, especially at the Emirates. Just didn't turn up there at all. But and the final one is this, Charlie. And I've changed it to defect. So most satisfying victory of 2021, Charlie. Take it away.
The thing is, we've had so many. Like I was talking, I did a preview before the Arsenal one on an Arsenal channel, on Glenn Kitely's channel. What a wonderful man he is! And like he was listing off every big team we've beaten. So you've beaten Tottenham recently, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, like all of them. I'll go with Manchester City in the cup again because it felt like Man United was pretty flipping good. Like Man United was pretty flipping good. Where like the cup game beforehand, where we just lost to them, and so going into it, there was like a sense of like, all right, we need to sort of get back at them here instantaneously, and we did, and like. It was just like, obviously, like with the Ronaldo thing and everything else before, it was whatever. But that second one was just like, oof. But I think, again, you have to go with City. It just all set up so perfectly, beating them on like going to extra time, going to pens, still beating them. I can't see past it. It was just too good. It was just too good. And it's a shame we crashed out of the cup in the way we did, because imagine if we'd carried on from there and done it. It wouldn't have been like when England got to the final, everyone's like, well, what teams did they actually face? It's like, it wouldn't have been one of those. It's been like, look, we beat bam, 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 bam. And it's a shame it ended up going the way it did. But probably the City game, just because it was just mad. Like, I still don't believe it quite. I still quite don't believe it.
From last season, I think the best win was the Wolves away game. And the Villa away game for me, especially in 2021. I thought the way we played was excellent in both them games. The Tottenham home game was a big game, and we beat them 2-1 when Jesse Lingard decided to get the band together. That was a good one. Yeah. And sort of going towards the back end of that season, the Southampton final game of the season. I know it's only the last game of the season, but we put in a great performance there. Yeah. But moving on to this year, I've got to say that I think the Chelsea game and the Liverpool game, to beat them two teams, and the Chelsea game was a bit of a fluke. I think if we would have drew that game, I think we would have been all going fair enough. We've got a draw, we're happy. But to nick it at the death really was great. The Liverpool game, I think, is the best game this season that we've played. I think we looked excellent. Pablo Fornals, from where he is now to where he is then, it's just two different men. He really is. When I look at other victories, we've nicked games this year, like this season, so to speak. But yeah, I would say the best game for me is Liverpool. And I've got a few questions in the chat. I see Daya's in the house. He's got a question for you. Question for Charlie. I like him. What strengths does he see in Vlasic?
I assume Daya means he likes me and not Vlasic, because I think I'm partially aware of Daya's opinions on Vlasic. All right, I'm going to say some things that's going to annoy you, Daya. Get hyped. He reminds me of Anderson when Anderson first joined, right? When Anderson first joined, he was doing passes and movements that no one else was reading. And I was there like, if only we had someone who's actually on this kid's wavelength, because he is just better. Like, I see it. The passing, Anderson would pull off these mad reverse through ball passes. And I'm like, if we had someone up front, or even as a fellow attacking midfielder who was on the same wavelength, because I think we have players who are as good as Vlasic, don't get me wrong, but have that sort of like intelligence to go, there's the space, I'm going to completely pull out a pass that no one's going to see, and it'll be beautiful. And just no one's making those movements. And I hadn't seen it at West Ham up until about 3 games ago, the recent run where he's come in. And all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, I'm starting to see it again. There's the pass. There's the thing. Because one of the things he did beautifully before he moved to West Ham, he had a bit of the Thomas Muller about him in that, or if you want to use an English reference, the Kevin Nolan about him. Right place, right time, pure instinct. I think the German phrase is random Deuter or whatever it is. It's the space investigator, a guy who just finds these pockets and just moves around them as if nothing, as if he just doesn't exist. He just pops up in them, right? And I hadn't seen it up at West Ham until about 3 games ago, where I don't know what changed. I don't know if he started to feel more acclimatized. I don't know if it's because he was just... James would be able to tell me how many minutes he got better than I would, but maybe it was getting more minutes. I don't know what it was. But all of a sudden I was like, ooh, we're starting to see those passes again. We're starting to see that little bit of invention again that we weren't seeing from him previously. The problem with Vlasic is the problem with any big name signing at West Ham and big money signing at West Ham, in that they cost a lot of money. And because we don't spend that money frequently, we go, they have to live up to their price. Whereas realistically, we should be looking at these people for their ability and not for how much they cost. And I think we're starting to see someone now who is growing into that sort of role. Again, he's been forced to play something at West Ham he wasn't playing before. Before, he was playing as this almost second striker, 10, occasionally up front, but he was basically the focal point. Everything was happening for him. Whereas now what we see is a guy, and he was getting forced out on the wing when he first turned up at West Ham. He was getting forced to play this sort of the Fornals Bowen role, where you're out wide, but you're having to work very hard to do everything. And I think he's got that in his game now. And I didn't see it. I never saw that before from him. And now I am seeing it from him, but he's also added in that attacking flair. And I think when I look at it, and part of his resurgence, if you want to call it that, or his starting to create some form, if you want to be harsh about it, I think that's part of the reason why I've said this to James on other shows, and I've said it to other people. I don't think we need Jesse Lingard, because I'm like, I would rather this guy who we have permanently, who's the right age, who can get better and we can invest in. I would rather he get those opportunities than a 29-year-old Jesse Lingard who's only going to get worse out from here. I really like him. I don't know fully whether it'll work out at West Ham long term yet, but at this point, I'm starting to see the signs that it will do, as opposed to 3-4 games ago, where I'm like, as much as I like him, I don't think it's going to work out. Now I feel like it's the time. So I hope I've annoyed you enough, Daya. You're welcome. Welcome to me. I know you don't know who I am. I'll annoy you more if you listen to me more. I promise you that, mate.
The thing is with Vlasic, though, Charlie, and this is the one thing that I do agree with Daya on, is for the money that he has cost, he hasn't really. How can I put this? We've signed a big name signing, and he's sitting on the bench, and Manuel Lanzini's getting ahead of him. That is not how it should be, is it? Really?
No, but I would also say that Manuel Lanzini is known to David Moyes, and David Moyes is an unbelievably conservative manager. When Lanzini was all out of form when Moyes came back, but because Lanzini was so important the first time, he went straight in. And it was like, well, okay. And he took Fornals out, who I know we disagree on that, but I thought Fornals was playing really well at the time. And he took him out and put Lanzini straight back in because he knew him. it doesn't shock me that if Moyes is looking at his bench and going, there's someone who needs to play here, we're going to put Lanzini in because I know him as a quantity. And again, I think part of that is that I don't think Vlasic was a Moyes signing by any stretch of imagination.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And I think Daya, me speaking for Daya, I think Daya agrees with that. I know that he believes he ain't a Moyes signing. I think it was a panic buy just to get someone in because we couldn't get Lingard. Finally, the final one of the night for me and Charlie is this man, David Moyes. Assess him for 2021. So from January last year, we went on a good old run. We ended up finishing 6th in the league. The signings and this year so far, Charlie. Give me your assessment.
I mean, you can't. I can't really criticize him too much. I can, and I do on a regular basis, but I can't really say too much. I mean, realistically, the thing I said about this before the season, and as we were getting good this season, and I will continue to say now, despite the fact it's not worked out recently. My biggest compliment I can pay David Moyes is the fact that every single player on that pitch knows what they're doing. And we've gone through a succession of managers who it never really had that. Not since probably Allardyce, where we had a bunch of players who actually knew exactly what to do. Because the best teams, it's almost muscle memory the way they play, right? You look at, say, and I know it's completely unfair to compare any Pep Guardiola team to West Ham United at any stage, but let's go with it just for a second. Listen and hear me out. Pep Guardiola's teams, they almost play netball. You almost have the player and the ball and everyone moves around them into spaces and they already know where they're going to pass it. It's almost instinctive. It's kind of wild. You watch, you're like, this is almost psychic. I don't get how they do it. But it's because it's that sort of muscle memory. They know what they're doing and that's drilled into them every moment they're training. This is exactly what you do. And so when it comes to game day, they know exactly what they're doing. As much as I don't particularly enjoy a lot of the time what David Moyes has drilled into them, it's inescapable that he's done it. Every single player knows exactly what they're doing at all times. And that includes the second team, which is an absurd thing to say about West Ham, that people who don't play a lot can drop into this team and still instinctively know what they're doing. Because to be honest with you, we haven't, like I said, since Allardyce, who's had his one thing, we have not had that. As much as I loved Bilic, and I try to say something about Slaven Bilic, watch me just chop your head off, right? As much as I loved him, it was very much, it was just laissez-faire. It was the boys go out there, we're playing counter-attacking, but realistically, my God, who knows what's going next, right? Pellegrini was great until the final third, where players were taking 6, 7, 8 touches, and they had no clue what they were doing with it. It was like they got there and then they went, right, what am I doing with it now? And that's the key point where you're like, that's where you lose it out. That's where you're not good. And that's the thing David Moyes has done. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes we revert to what we're doing naturally, and it's frustrating because we're just trying to get it out to either Kufal or Cresswell, and we're trying to put these balls into the box, especially recently, and it's just not working. And it's like, it's frustrating to see us like butting our head up against this wall. And it was one of the things Moyes got criticised for massively at Manchester United. I remember there was that game, I can't remember who it was against, but where he had like 80 crosses or something like that. And everyone was like, bloody hell. The thing is, though, is that everyone knows exactly what they're doing. And when we're at our best, it's incredibly difficult to stop. It's incredibly difficult to stop. And this season, he's added in a little bit of that attacking flair that we all love. You're seeing the Ben Ramas coming through. Bowen's been making brilliant runs. Lanzini's dropping deep, getting a bit of continental flair, if you want to word it that way, in there where we're more than the sum of our parts. And I think that's something I will always credit him on. As much as I will say this now to most people's hate, I still don't particularly like David Moyes. Like, my God, has he drilled that team? And it makes us difficult to beat. The fact that our slip at the moment, we're still incredibly high up the table and we're still pulling off results here, there, and everywhere when we shouldn't have, shows how well he's drilled his team. And that's a massive credit to him and the coaching staff, obviously.
What are you expecting from 2022 from Moyes' team and Moyes in general, Charlie? More of the same? Or do you think...
I don't think more of the same. I don't think more
I've had this sort of... How can I put this? I've had this discussion on different platforms.
Yeah.
Has Moyes reached his level now where he can only take us to 6th or 7th? Like, he can't get us up to that further without investment? And can Moyes really do that himself, so to speak? What do you think?
Yeah. So I don't think Moyes is the stumbling block. I'll say that. I don't think he's the funnel that would stop. I don't think that would. I don't think that would stop him. How do I word this? I'm struggling to word this here. I don't think he is the funnel that stops us from achieving greatness. I think Moyes does a couple of things that I will never agree with him on. For example, he puts a lot less emphasis on cups than I would. And I think most West Ham fans would. I don't think Moyes is particularly that bothered about cups. I think he's more bothered about league position. That is what it is. That's just philosophies. He knows where his bread is buttered, and that is the Premier League and whatever else. Like, it just is what it is. But I don't think the funnel is him. I think it is investment. Now, the problem is of course, with a club of our size and a club of our stature, we aren't one of the top four. We aren't the extra two that you put onto that in Arsenal and Tottenham. We always will have to rely on smart business in order to get better. Part of the reason why we're so good now is signings like Souček, Bowen, Benrahma, people like that who have come in, and Kufau, who have come in, Zuma, and have revolutionized this team, right? And without that ability to do smart business, we can never grow past that. I think with David Moyes, what we have is a situation where we'll always be difficult enough to beat and good enough going forward on the counter-attack, where we should realistically get top 10 every single season without fail. We just should. And whatever we get on top of that's kind of a bonus. If we want to be further forward, if we want to be more than that, then it has to be a case of investment, but not just the amount of money we put in, but be smart about it. That means not just buying random players from South America, David Sullivan. That also means not just buying whatever Will Salthouse has got on his books at the time. That means actually smart scouting. That means smart recruitment. And thankfully, it looks like we've done that. We've got Rod Newman. We've invested in more scouts now. We've got this new investor who already opens up our network even more. And hopefully that's part of his ideas, is he brings in a bigger recruitment side so we can essentially supercharge us. In a way, Brentford supercharge themselves from the doldrums of the Football League all the way up to the Premier League, but hopefully beyond that. And we supercharge ourselves from a safe mid-table club into challenging for Europe every year. What do I expect next season? Or in 2022, I don't expect much of the same, because I still think we're probably, for the beginning of the season, we were probably outperforming ourselves somewhat. But I think what we'll see is a leveling out. We've been very unlucky to have 3 major injuries at the back, and then 3 out of our 4 front lines go completely out of form at once. That doesn't happen too rarely. Of course, we're West Ham, we get injuries, but that kind of all at once thing doesn't happen that often. And if we can give David Moyes investment to allow him to recruit smartly, so we don't have to go, Cresswell's injured, Masuaku's playing left back, and so we don't have that situation anymore, then we should be able to, even when these knocks come, maintain a level of performance that keeps us challenging for Europe, because that ultimately has to be the goal. That has to be the goal every year. We want to be the best of the rest. That is the goal for West Ham United. And whether we do it one season or we don't, I don't know. But top 10 is going to be the goal. That's going to be the expected level from here on out. We can't be looking at, we need to survive. Yeah,
I agree, mate. I agree with everything you just said there. I think Moyes has got us well marshalled, but he's stubbornness sometimes. He's a bit left to be desired. I think he's a very stubborn man. We both know, Charlie, we've watched West Ham long enough to know that Arthur Masuaku is not a left back, and he kept playing him there, and it was like, what are you seeing? That we all know he can't defend, but we're all picking him, and it's like, in one way, it's like you feel sorry for him in a way that he's going, I'm going to give him benefit of that, and then eventually he goes, you know what? No, I can't do it no more. I think in 2022, I want to see us progress, but I want us to go out and buy the right players and not go out and get these shoehorn players and try and shoehorn them into a position. I don't want to go and see Ryan Fredericks as a winger or Masuaku as a winger. I want to see a left back who's a left back, or a striker who's a striker. Do you know what I mean? I find, I don't know whether you agree on this, Charlie, but I find when it comes to us signing players, so to speak, we've got too many players who do all the same job, so to speak. We've got one winger really in Bowen. Like Ben Rama's not really a winger, I wouldn't say. He's not a flying winger. Fornals, Vlasic, Lanzini, they all played a similar way.
Yeah.
What do you think on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what I want to see is options, right? So, like you say, Moyes is incredibly stubborn. Some of that is just because he is incredibly stubborn. And some of that because it's kind of almost like for like in these substitutions. I would like to see us have just something a bit different, like you say, maybe an out-and-out winger who on that left-hand side can come on, just take on his man and put balls into the box. We're not looking at Ben Rama, who's going to cut inside. We're not looking at Vlasic when he plays out there, who's going to cut inside, Lanzini, all that same sort of thing. Those sort of wide players who like to come in and play make. No, I want someone who's just going to take on his man like Bowen and go for it kind of thing. That would be ideal. That would be ideal. And hopefully, if Moyes had more of those options, he'd be able to... He would maybe prove us wrong in when we call him stubborn. I doubt it, but he would maybe do that.
I agree, mate. I agree. He's doing a great job, though. I've got to admit, he's just a stubborn sod at times. He really is, and I look at him and I think, like, sometimes you've got to change things around. But he tries to give it benefit of the doubt, as I say. But before we go, Charlie, I just want to ask you this because this has been an interesting topic of conversation. Our midfield too. We've got two great midfielders in Declan Rice and Thomas Souček. I think you know what I'm going to say. But one goes, one stays. But now we've got two players who want to go forward. How do we sort this out, mate?
Okay. So I've been talking about this for a while, and I know it's something no one wants to hear. Declan Rice needs to stop going forward. He just does. I'm sorry. I don't want to tell Declan Rice what to do either. I know we all think he's the greatest thing ever, and he is. Let's be real. He's a great player. Yada, yada, yada. Declan Rice. Let's go, boys. Come on, right? 59th best player according to The Guardian in the world, whatever, right? Grand old time. Let's go. He needs to stop shooting from range because it's never going to happen again. Please stop it. You're not good. You did it once. It was great, but it's never going to happen again. But he's so good defensively. He's so unbelievably good. He has the pace. He has the anticipation, the positioning, everything that makes him incredibly good as a defensive midfielder to anchor that midfield. And he has the passing range. I'm not going to say like Pirlo, because Pirlo is a different level to anyone I've ever seen in my life. But that kind of like, he can also play it out. He's not just going to stop you. He's not going to anticipate it, collect it, stop you, and then pass it sideways. No, the guy's going to progress the ball forward. And he can drive from midfield in those positions. I feel like he just needs to stop going forward so often. And if he is, when you're on the ball, go ahead and do it. But when someone else on the team has the ball, be the guy who can sit back, because one of Thomas Souček's biggest and best traits is his incredible anticipation in the box. He, again, Kevin, to reference him for a second time, he is Kevin Nolan-esque at being in the right place at the right time. The goal against Watford was an incredible example where he saw the space, he saw the run, he made it. Thankfully, Jarrod Bowen found him, who was having an incredible game, and my God, his last 3 assists are all beautiful. But at least then he can go, he finds it, and then look, his shot wasn't great, but it ended up in the back of the net, so I don't want to complain too much. That's the kind of thing that Declan Rice just doesn't have. And that's not a criticism of Declan Rice. That's just a fact of the matter. If you put flipping Virgil van Dijk in his prime at Cab, he's not going to be pulling off world-class passes because it's just not the kind of player he is, right? And I know I don't like saying this because I don't want to be the guy to... and look, realistically, Declan Rice isn't listening to Judge Harley Walsh. He doesn't give a rat's bottom what I think, right? But realistically, when you look at the traits, the best traits of both of those people, Souček needs to be allowed to go forward and Declan Rice needs to be the one who stays if we are to stick with this 2. Of course, we could change to a 3, but for me, I think 2 is the way to go, to be honest with you.
See, the thing is, and Dayo's in the chat has been calling for a 3. Now, I agree with Dayo to a point on this, but is Declan Rice in the wrong position? Is Declan Rice really a number 8? Like, is he really a defensive midfielder now, or is he a number 8 type player where he can?
I think he. Can I say something really offensive? Can I say something really offensive to Declan Rice? He's Czech Chiarte. That's what he is.
Yeah.
He thinks he's a number 8. Fam, you're not a number 8. You're a number 6. And it's okay. It's all
Mm,
right. Like, and look, when I play football with my big 200 whatever pound body I have,
mm,
I think I'm Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm not, but my God, am I going to keep trying? But
mm,
realistically, you have to be honest about what you are. Now, I'm not saying Declan Rice isn't. And Declan Rice, obviously, as Mandy G says, he wants to drive forward. And that's
mm,
completely understandable. I think my one problem I would say with three in the middle, and I don't think it's a bad shout at all. Especially if we have Lanzini in a if we're playing 4-2-3-1, but one of the three is Lanzini, I think it works better because Lanzini has this really nice connective quality where he drops deep and gets involved deeper. I don't want to curb our attacking output. I don't want to curb our attacking output. And I think the best teams need to have the ability to take on the opposition at their own game. We need to be able to step to them. How many top teams who play, especially in the Premier League, but you can go elsewhere in Europe, play defensive-ish football? Not many. Not many.
yeah.
Right? Because if you're a top team, you take it to the opposition. Now, that's not to say if we're facing Man City, if we're facing Liverpool, if we're facing any team like that, I think a free in midfield is probably a smart shout. Whether it is Rice, Souček, and Lanzini, or whether it is Krau, Rice, Souček, or Noble, Rice, Souček, or whatever combination of boys you want to put in that role is, I think there's a fair shout to be saying that that's probably a smart way of doing it because that allows you to have that sort of strength and solidity in the midfield area. You beat your opposition in midfield and then you can allow that front line to have a little bit more freedom. We won't, by the way. Our wingers will still drop incredibly deep because that's David Moyes, but whatever. For me personally, when we're looking at games like Watford, for example, you have to take it to them. And one of my biggest criticisms of David Moyes the first time and the second time before we got good, was we really struggled against teams who sat deep because we could not break them down. And we would need to have a little bit more in us than a sort of free in midfield. Obviously, it would work for some games, and I'm fully for it because, again, you do have to prepare for your opposition somewhat. We can sit here and act like when we talk about what the best 11 is or all of this sort of stuff, realistically, the answer is you change it depending on who your opposition is, who can most take advantage of your opposition's weaknesses. But my concern with three in midfield in general would be it would curb our attacking output a little bit too much.
The thing is, though, Charlie, and one thing I will say to counter that is when yesterday sort of proved a lot of things to me yesterday. First thing it proved that when people criticise Mark Noble, he come back with a bang yesterday. He was absolutely first class. But the thing that proved it to me yesterday is how when Declan Rice goes forward, Thomas Souček's just not a good player as a DM. He's just not. Like, if you, for argument's sake, said, right, we had Basuma next to Rice, and we said, right, Basuma is the DM and Rice will go forward, then I think you'd have the same sort of impact as Thomas Souček does for West Ham in Declan Rice. I think even better. But the problem is we haven't got Basuma, we've got Souček and we've got Rice. And it just seems like, I understand people saying calling for the free. I agree partly with it in certain games. But in games against lower ranked opposition, we shouldn't be going with free in midfield. We should be going with out-and-out attack. And I do go back to the game. The game last year against Arsenal at home, right, was frighteningly good in that first half with Ben Rama, Bowen, Lingard was in there, Antonio, I think it was. There was no Fornells in there. So you had a front four of pace either side and Jesse Lingard picking the ball up and driving forward and everything. And that's what Declan Rice is doing, really, is doing what Lingard done last year and being like the driving force, picking the ball up and carrying it. We haven't got really any ball carriers in our team. What do you think?
Arthur Masuaku, but apart from that, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. We have a tendency to play the ball as opposed to running with it. I think that's very fair to say. I think that's incredibly fair to say.
Yeah, we need some ball carriers, like someone who just picks the ball up. And Bowen does it. Benny does it to a point, but he's not really good at ball carry. He's more give him the ball just outside the box or something. He could do something, but he doesn't
want to carry it. He doesn't want to carry it from deep, and that's what Rice gives you. And it's what Masuaku does give you in a back five, but in a back four, you're like, he's so much of a liability. There's no point even talking about it. But I 100% agree. I will say this about Declan Rice, and this is what I mean. I want him to sit back, but if he has the ball at his feet, bro, carry it up the pitch. You're one of those people. Harry Maguire is disgracefully good at it for what Harry Maguire is. Harry Maguire should not be able to pick the ball up and carry it like he does, but he does. Similar situation where I'm like, yo, if you have the ball, carry it, take it forward, because you're big enough, you're strong enough, you're fast enough, and you're good enough to take the ball very deep. Like you say, like Lingard, that's a great comparison because I've never thought about it that way. That's an unreal comparison. It's just when you're not on the ball, you know.
And I agree on that, mate. I really do. That's why when you look at Lingard from last year and look at us this year, we haven't got anyone who does sort of. And when we're asking Declan to go forward, he's going forward, but then what it is, he gets caught out because he's going forward and he's out of position. And last season, I think he only had 1 or 2 bookings last season, the whole of last season. And this season, he's been booked 5 times already. So that, to me, says it all. It says it all to me. So, and that is it, Charlie. That has been the West Ham review of 2021. I'm going to give me your final thought, mate, and before we go.
First of all, if you haven't already, subscribe to E20 Zone TV. What the hell are you doing here? If you've made it this far, or if you've just joined live and you haven't already subscribed, and more importantly, like the video as well to grow. Come on, guys. Come on now. James is out here, I can't even just he's putting, bruv. When people put in the work in, you give him the respect, right? He's putting in the work in. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to do so. Secondly, I don't know if you've heard this, James, right? There's something I heard this, I saw it on Twitter the other day. I don't know if you heard, but West Ham are massive. I don't know if you've seen this. I don't know if you've heard this, but I've seen people a couple of times. West Ham are massive, and I just feel like this is a good platform to put that forth into the world and to just let the people do what they do. If West Ham are massive, just putting it out there. Do you know what I mean? Come on your hands and all that good stuff.
I will pay you later for your advertising skills, mate. 100%. Nice one. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. To have you on, Afas on, all the boys and
Appreciate
people who I've had on. I've had Daya on, I love Daya. He's a character, but he's got his opinion like everyone else has. Like he's a bit like me, but just older and better looking. Do you know what I mean? But Jake, Charlie, yourself, obviously Lucas, who comes on, does the American stuff for me, Afas, loads of people. I ain't gonna name too many. I've got some good ideas in the new year. I must admit, I've got some ideas. I've got a few people in mind who are not even West Ham fans that I'm going to do some stuff with. Paul's one of them, and Sharky's the other one. And I'm gonna start putting it out there a bit more in 2022. You know yourself, Charlie. It gets harder from time to time, doesn't it, mate? Like when you're doing a YouTube channel, and sometimes you want to just shut down and go, you know what, that's enough for me. You know what I mean? But you just got to crack on, keep going, and get through the other side, basically. Do you know what I mean? But and again, I know I've just bigged up James a lot, but I should say this to you, James, specifically while we're on air, just while everyone can hear me say it, because I feel like the people need to know. James, you were doing your thing on Ham's Pulse, and you were doing really well. And I remember we had a conversation. You were like, I'm going to take the summer off or whatever. And you came back, and since then you've just been smashing it. You're like, you've got your own thing now. You're heading it. You're chasing it, and you're seeing results. And I think that speaks for itself. I think that speaks for itself. You've been doing bits, and I think again. Subscribe. Just it's a one button. Just press it, bro. Just press it. Fair play, bro. And he's after payment. He's after double payment.
Listen, if there's money to be got, your boy's getting it. You know what I mean? No. Big 2022 coming for E20 Zone TV and also West Ham United tangentially as well.
Yeah. Also, I got to thank Daya and all, Jake, and other people who's helped me out. Also, I can't not forget them. They're top individuals. Anyway, that's enough from us. I want everyone to have a very happy New Year from me personally. As I always say on all my videos, it's been a hard year for everyone with COVID and people lost their life and everything. And let's see. Hopefully, 2022 will be a better year for a lot of people up and down the land and everyone around the world, basically. So have a good New Year from me and Charlie. Anyway, that's goodbye from us. Take care. All
Happy
the best.
New Year.
And
come on, you hands. Big place. Deploy the boys. Let's go. Come on.
let's get this done. Bye for now.